Hello Internet, welcome back to my Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead series. In the last episode, we dealt with the fallout after crashing our game in an episode prior to that, so we talked about that a bit. And then we began sorting through this massive pile of corpses that we had seen previously. We used the sorting zones to pull out the items of value, and because we had all these sludge trails, we actually spent a little bit of time mopping them up so that we would have easier access to the loot from the corpses. We did loot a few buildings in the area, but nothing spectacular happened. Of course, we are pretty established in the game at this point. We don't need your average tool or food item. And then we came back to base and we slept, which is still taking a really long time in my game. So welcome back everyone, that's super exciting. The last thing we did was sleep, of course, which like I said took 6 or 7 minutes of real time to do. We are very hungry, we are very thirsty. Let us eat some meat. How are we doing? Let's check our meat supply. I think we did this in the last episode, but it's been a while. Yeah, we have tons and tons of meat. Can we make anything? What's our cooking skill? Food handling is a 2 with 96%. Why don't we look at things? This would be the C: for component, chunk of meat, and see if we can cook anything a little bit more impressive than just some cooked meat. Give our guy a break from eating raw. I think it's mostly moose and cow in our freezer at this point. We can make meat pies and things. They're yellow, which means that they are slightly above the skill level we need to make them. But again, we're at 96%, so we would, in the process of crafting this, meet the skill requirement, so we would be less likely to fail. Recipe makes 4 portions of meat pizza. I do like a good meat pizza, who doesn't? And we would use chunks of meat, of course. We have 30 portions, 180 portions of flour. I feel like I always hold on to the flour thinking like, oh, I need to keep it because it's such a valuable thing, but then I never use it. So it's like, why even bother keeping it? We can make sloppy joes using crackers. Not exactly what I would think of as a good sloppy joe. So let's make a meat pizza. I think we'll just make one. It makes 4 portions. The calorie density will range. 4 portions will require 2 portions of meat. So it'll probably be about 300 calories per pizza, which is odd because in the store, aren't they like 800 calories? You know, I don't know. Let's make a meat pizza here, and we will use our chunks of meat, of course. We can even use scraps of meat for this. We'll do that maybe in the future. Oh, but it requires additional components. Well, we have a lot of Italian seasoning, and of course we'll use our hot plate. Skill in food handling has increased to 3. We did fail despite having the required skill now, so I'm not sure why we failed. Great, you put the meat pizza hot on the workbench, of course. So how many calories do you have, meat pizza? Let's pick them up so we can see them a little easier. Meat pizza hot. Let's step outside so our consume menu is small. 500 calories, it's more than I expected. Because we used the chunks of meat, which are like 400 calories each when cooked. So it was 2 chunks of meat going into 4 portions of pizza. So it's about 800 calories split among 4 portions. And then the Italian seasoning doesn't really add many calories at all, and neither does the flour. So I'm surprised that the calories are so high. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but we're going to eat ourselves a nice portion of meat pizza. It does not have a negative health attached to it, so that is something. And then, did I ever make tea is the next question. It would be on this pile. Tea? I did. So we have a gallon jug of pine needle tea, which we'll drink here to boost our health stats slightly. Unfortunately, we could only eat 2 portions of pizza before we became full. We're going to keep those in our inventory. That way we can eat while we're out looting the town. And we're now full. I don't really want to carry a gallon jug of tea with me. We are still thirsty, but we can drink as we loot. So we're going to drop the pine needle tea. Actually, I don't know what tile it goes on, so we'll just drop it down here. We'll hang on to that meat pizza. Alright, let's have a look and see where we should prioritize our looting. So we were pushing pretty far west. We can mark all these pools and things as cleared out as well. And I believe we just sort of looted. Did we loot some of these houses, I think? I don't want to mark them. I know we marked this this restaurant has been looted. So what else is in the area here that we might be interested in? Fast food restaurants. I mean, again, they would have more flour and things. This arcade would be nice for electronics components, but I think we already have quite a few electronics components, and they tend to spawn a lot of zombie children, so don't know that that's worth it. There was an NPC in here somewhere. I think, yes, in the outdoorsman shop, so I think maybe we should push in that direction, and I think we should maybe push for the fire station as well. And then the gun store, of course, has value. Well, if we're going to go to the gun store, I have a hacksaw. I believe we have an acetylene torch here somewhere. Sorry, my lisp got away from me a little bit there. So where's our tools pile? That's this pile, I believe. No, that's weapons. Where's my tools? There we go. We do have acetylene torches, so we'll pick one of them up. Are you loaded with any acetylene? No, you're not. So I don't know if I brought tanks with me. And I also don't know if the tanks, I think they would be spare parts probably. So we'll check this area. Actually, no, it's ammo, right? The acetylene would be considered ammunition or fuel. I don't think we have a fuel tile. So I don't know that we would have brought necessarily the tanks with us. Oh boy, I have no idea. Let's use the all command in the advanced inventory and we'll look for acetylene. Is it acetylene though? It can use it will have acetylene in the name regardless though, right? So we'll just search around. We don't see anything. Let's check the exterior tiles. Yeah, so I don't know that we brought... Actually, aren't they just called welding tanks, or is that a different thing? So let's look for weld instead. Sorry, I know this probably is not terribly interesting to watch. So check the exterior, nothing. Check the interior. This is the only way I know to quickly... Okay, so here we have some welding tanks. Let's grab a small tank. Actually, I have no idea how big... I don't know how many charges you consume cutting the metal bars, but we'll take... Oh, no, don't put them... Well, it's fine. We'll pick them up off the workbench. See if we can reload the acetylene torch. You reload the acetylene torch with small welding tank. It no longer fits in your inventory, so you drop it instead. Sure. Okay. So we're going to head up towards that grocery store. And in the last episode, I think we talked a lot about video games. And we talked a lot about YouTube. Oh, and we need to take some cough syrup before we go, so we're not coughing constantly. That will be a pain in the butt to constantly be coughing. So we'll look around here and we'll pick up some non-drowsy cough syrup because we don't want to go back to sleep. And we should be good. Wait a minute. Did it not you take some okay. Yeah, so we talked about YouTube, we talked about Warframe, which I'm already getting over Warframe. Some of the arbitrary time restrictions are time gates are completely unnecessary and making me not like the game very much. But anyway, we're not going to talk about games and stuff. Why don't we get a question? We haven't gotten a random question. We've been talking about my life a lot. I could talk about my life. I had a lot of appointments recently. But I think we'll get a random question here. So let's click random question, scroll, click. What do you think of Baby Lojack? Baby Lojack, is that where you... Baby Lojack, is that where you... I don't know if this is a real thing. It's going to sound terrible coming out of my mouth. Is that where you chip your baby so it, like, has a GPS signal that you can track? I have to let me Google this real quick. Okay, so after some extensive Googling... it appears that Baby Lojack is a thing where you put a GPS tracking bracelet on the baby in the hospital so that the local nurses station is alerted if the baby goes out of a certain area. And if that's what we're talking about, I don't find that controversial at all. I think that's like a great thing to have. It's like a little anklet that you put on a baby that tracks their location so the baby can't be stolen. I don't see why that's a controversial thing. I think that's perfectly fine. And I did see another article that said you can give them to your children to wear as like a decorative bracelet, but it actually, you know, broadcasts a GPS signal so that you can always know where your child is. I think that that is also fine. I think that that is fine for a small child. I think if you were tracking your teenager, you know, making them wear basically a GPS ankle bracelet like you would give a parolee, I think that's a bit questionable. I mean, although I say that, and it's like there are problematic children who could get themselves in a dangerous situation or get themselves hurt. So I think, I don't know, it's situational. You know, I listen to a lot of true crime stuff. I know that bad things happen in the world, so it's like, you know, You want to keep an eye on your kids. I get it. I get it. It's not something I would do necessarily, but I'm also not a parent, so maybe that would change my view of that. And then when I heard this question, I actually thought maybe I'm misremembering, but when I was a teenager, there was a thing about people who chip their children so that they can be tracked. And I always thought, like, what a huge invasion of privacy to, like, so I don't know if this is a real thing or if this is just me misremembering something from childhood, but I always thought it was like you put in a, like, RFID chip or something but that doesn't make sense, right? Because, like, let's say we chip, so my cat is chipped, and basically all it does, it's not a question of knowing where they are at all times. It's more like if they get picked up by a vet, then they have a chip in them that has identifying information, so they'll contact us and say, like, hey, we found your cat that got out. So I don't think that I don't think it broadcasts a signal. So I must be misremembering, because when I was a teen, I was like, oh man, they're putting chips in their babies so they can monitor them 24/7, and that's a huge invasion of privacy and blah blah blah, etc. So I don't think that's really what it is. I think I'm misremembering, because that's bonkers. Like, I would never advocate someone be monitored through something they have no control over. Like, let's say you get an ankle bracelet because your teen is like a problem teen. Let's say you have like a 14-year-old daughter suddenly starts hanging out with like a 25-year-old guy who's a creeper or something terrible like that. It's like, yeah, you want to know where she's at. You don't want her sneaking out to see. And again, this is my true crime side coming out, because you hear stuff like that in true crime and you're like, why didn't the parents do anything? But you're also, as a parent, like, what are you gonna do? How do you stop a kid who's gonna, like, what do you put bars on the doors and windows? How do you, like, that's terrible. Like, how do you keep a kid from going out and doing drugs or whatever? You can't really stop them per se, even when they are children. So I kind of get the impulse of, like, I need to know where you're at, I need to be monitoring this person, but it also just seems like a huge invasion of privacy. It seems like something that I would have a hard time negotiating. Like, I wouldn't even advocate for felons or like super vile criminals. I don't even think they should be tracked 24/7, because I think it's an invasion of privacy. People are entitled to the ability to go somewhere without being monitored, and in the case of like a child, obviously they have not done something on the same level as, like, some heinous murderer or whatever, but that's just where my brain went. I really am in a true crime mindset. I don't know why. I was thinking about this earlier. I was gonna say, I was gonna talk initially in this episode, I was gonna talk about what I'm working on for YouTube, and what I've been doing with my time. But I talk about YouTube too much, and every now and then I get a comment where people are like, just shut up and play the game, stop talking about YouTube, no one cares. Which, is like, it's the internet. There are always people who are gonna be like aggressive and toxic and whatever. But it always bums me out when I hear stuff like that, because I'm like, yeah, most people probably don't care and don't want to hear about it. So I was originally going to talk about YouTube, and one of the things is, like, I've been, my numbers have really dipped recently. My views, like all the numbers that matter. My subscriber number is still going up, but it doesn't really mean anything. But all my important numbers, like viewership, average views and watch time and stuff like that, all of that's down like 25%, some huge percent. And I was going to talk about, like, why that is, because I haven't been making super great content. And one of the things I was going to make a joke where I was like, yeah, if I really wanted views, I would quit doing gaming and I would do true crime, because that seems to be the hot thing now. So we have this fire engine here. I don't really need the gear. We have better armor. We're wearing riot armor, or SWAT armor rather, which I think is called riot armor in the files. But it's a very good suit of armor. It covers our torso, arms, and legs, which is great. It has 95% coverage, which is fantastic, and it has very good protective values, particularly against ballistic and whatnot. So I don't feel like we need better armor for our arms, legs, or torso. We also have the Kevlar vest under that armor to protect our torso even further. I believe that's also 95% coverage. Really, 85%. Okay, that's fine. And we have arm guards, don't we? Yeah, metal arm guards. So the main thing we would want was more protection on our legs. We could do with some leg guards or something similar, but we're not going to put on turnout trousers. If we can find one here to look at. Turnout trousers. Their encumbrance is just too much. 25 encumbrance on our legs is terrible, and because they occupy the outer layer, they can be worn over our SWAT armor. I just would never do that. Like, it's just too much. And the reality is their protection values are good, but they're not really exceptional. I could, for less encumbrance, I could make metal leg guards, which would have much better protection and have a lower encumbrance. Actually, I don't know. Do we have any leg guards we can look at real quick? Well, the scrap ones are going to be very encumbering. Scrap leg guards, still only 6 inches. That seems probably not right. They're strapped as well. That too, it doesn't conflict with most layers because they're a strapped on layer. And they only have 18 encumbrance, but you'll see the protection values are much higher. And I'm pretty sure if we went back to base, we could probably put together something like, I don't think there are chitin leg guards, but I'm sure we probably have a higher tier metal leg guard we could make. So I don't know that we need that. So what we would do here, we're going to take a lot of this stuff, not because we want to wear it, but because we want to harvest the Nomex and the Kevlar and things like that. I think we'll have like a big old butcher session here. So let's grab everything and dump it on the floor. Why? Oh, because I still have a filter enabled. Get rid of that filter. Go ahead and plop that stuff on the floor. We'll do the same thing up front here. For now, let's go all, and we'll just dump it to the south here. Yeah. I mean, I don't need the water, of course, but... Okay. So we'll do this, you know, and it's not even something we necessarily need to do. It's just something that we're gonna do, I think. Okay, why are you not highlighting the items? I hate advanced inventory because I never do it right. So here it's pointed at the back seat. Do I have the filter still? I don't. So it's pointed at the seat directly above us, which is where all these items are, but it's not showing anything. And I don't know why that is, because we can see here that these have, oh, okay. No, I was on the wrong tile. Of course. It usually is user error. I just don't like advanced inventory because I never learned to be particularly good with it. So yeah, personal mistake there. Can't haul through a window frame. Okay. So we'll do the same thing here again with advanced inventory. Anyway, jokes aside, and I do like true crime, but I would never make true crime content. So like true crime is big in podcasts right now. Like it's like probably the #1 genre in podcasts. And I think it's interesting. I listen to true crime mostly because I'm fascinated. So there are 2 things that I really like about true crime. One is when they get caught and they confess to everything and the families get closure, and like you hear about the psychological evaluations and you kind of learn about these crazy people and why they do the things they do. I find that really deeply fascinating. So I really enjoy when they get caught and they're held accountable for what they do and people get some amount of closure. I'm sure, obviously it never fixes everything, but it gives you some amount of closure. I want to butcher. I don't want to disassemble, because disassembling would take 3 hours. But butchering... Okay, let's butcher 1 just to make sure we don't screw it up. And let's do a low value item like the gloves, I guess. I don't really care. Okay, so we get the materials. So what do I get if I disassemble one? Can I disassemble one? Disassemble. Let me just pull 1 item out. And we'll do, I don't know, the boots. And then let's try disassembling. Oh, you can only cut them up? Can I disassemble them from the item menu? Let's have a look here. Item, disassemble. Cannot disassemble. Okay, so they just get butchered, which is fine. That's what I wanted anyway. So we'll butcher these just to get some materials. Oh, probably shouldn't have done the helmets because I don't think we're wearing a good helmet. What are we wearing? Hard hat? Yeah, we could definitely upgrade that. We should look into doing that. Maybe we'll go back to base and we'll craft a bit. Although I did say I would push for that gun store. Well, we'll figure things out. Anyway, I don't need any of these garments and I'm never going to wear them. So butchering them is like... I'm not even sure I'm going to need the materials, but we're going to just butcher all this stuff. There probably is a butcher option, isn't there? Well, I'm afraid to use it now because what if it tries to cut up the materials that we got? Okay, so we got Lycra, Kevlar, Nomex, and plastic chunks. So I think we for sure take the Kevlar because we may need that to repair our SWAT armor at some point. So So we'll pull those out. Lycra, I don't think is very common, and neither is Nomex, but I can't think of any reason why I would need those to repair or craft items. So we'll just take like 50 of each, and we'll call it a day. And the reality is, if we really need to, we can always just go, can I pick everything up? Great, that'll save me some key presses. Oh, but it took a long time to pick up. So we'll walk back to base, we'll dump these in our vehicle. I don't know that we need them. So I really enjoy when they get caught. I think that, like one of the things, so I listen to true crime podcasts because I drive a lot for work, and I am very hard pressed to find good podcasts because many of them are terrible. So I try out a lot of podcasts and hate all of them. And every now and then I find one that I like. I've just about cleared out all of the morbid podcast history, every episode mostly that I've listened to. I find that they do a good job mostly. Some of their older episodes are rough, and then the ladies themselves, I don't love them as hosts. Like, one of the things that really bothers me, they talk a lot about their astrological signs, and they talk about them like they have an impact on your personality. And I really hate when people, because to me, so if you're listening to this and you are someone who likes astrological stuff, horoscopes, all that kind of stuff, that's great. You can like whatever you want. But the minute you try to tell me that because, oh, you're a Taurus, you're a Pisces, so you have this personality trait, that's real dumb. No one is defined by the date of their birth. I think that that's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. You're entitled to believe whatever you want. But yeah, that's right up there for me for like things that immediately make me dislike a person is if they tell me like, oh, you're such a Taurus. Then I'll, my instinct is to headbutt them and never speak to them again. But yeah, I don't love that so about those hosts. But anyway, that's not really relevant. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. Many of them are terrible. And one of the things that really triggers me with true crime is when they do unsolved cases. Because basically, when you do an unsolved case and you're talking about true crime, you're giving all these facts like, oh, they went to the store at 8:53 p.m. and it was the last time anyone saw them alive. And you're like, oh, good. Oh, no, that's terrible. And then they're like, we found out later that they were brutally murdered and this is what happened. And you're like, oh, God, this is terrible. And then they get to the end and they're like, and no one knows who did it. So there's no closure to this case. Bye, everybody. See you next week. And it's like, why? I just listened to 30 minutes of you describing a brutal murder. I'm not here for that. Like, that's not why I listen to true crime. So, like, all you did was ruin my day, make me listen to some horrible thing that someone went through, and then the person gets away with it, and it's like, oh, that's not satisfying at all. That's very sad, and now I'm bummed out, and there's nothing I can do about that, and that's horrible. Like, I just hate when there's no resolution. It's one of the things that really triggers me with true crime is when they're like, yep, and they got away with it, huzzah. It's like, oh my God. So we see a boomer glutton, and I can't find it here. I don't know where you're at. I don't know what you are. Boomer glutton, a large grotesque ball of flesh and fat. Oh, that's a horrible way to describe me. That's going right on the dating profile. Seemingly vestigial limbs flop around haphazardly as it rolls across the ground. You occasionally catch a glimpse of bulging eyes and a distended, gaping maw oozing some sort of black sludge. So that's interesting. It's basically a boomer that is so rotund that its limbs are not functional anymore, and it just sort of rolls in your direction, which is really interesting and really kind of a cool thing to add. However, the description gives me absolutely no insight into what this creature does. I have no idea. Are they dangerous? Are they not dangerous? It's color-coded red in my sidebar, which means it should be very dangerous. But boomers are usually one-hit kills, so I don't really know what your deal is. I don't know what you do upon exploding. I know there have been some people on Discord talking about adding new functionality. Korg has been working on adding monster attacks that occur on death, or use spell effects, I should say, when a creature dies. So we have the ability to make more stuff happen when a creature dies now, and boomers are like a natural way to do that. Someone was talking about making a bone boomer that explodes in shrapnel of bones and stuff, and like there are some cool ideas floating around the community on what to do here. So you're a proper shocker. We would really like to loot you for CBMs, but I have to shoot to kill you, and there were quite a lot of enemies up there. The other thing is that as we approach well, two things. One, as we loot the gun store, we're going to set off an alarm at some point. So we might as well start shooting and draw them in already, because they're going to be drawn in when we fail to get our way in the store without triggering an alarm. And then secondarily, we kind of want to draw them this way anyway, because there's an NPC over here, and we would like to talk to the NPC. We haven't really seen or interacted with them any time recently. So I thought we would try to draw them away, try to keep that NPC alive so that we can go and talk to them and possibly loot this outdoorsman shop, although it likely doesn't have anything that we need. So yeah, I guess we'll fall back and we'll start shooting. You lose some blood. Well, did I really need the blood though? Like, let's be honest. We'll wield our M4 and we're just gonna start the onslaught, because this is gonna take a long time. I wish I could mark items so that I don't forget. Let's just put spear in between houses. That way if I lose my spear, we'll remember where it was. And yeah, we're going to start the arduous process of shooting a jillion enemies, as we have done multiple times before. Yeah, I hate when there's no resolution to true crime. And then the other part of true crime that I really like is the court cases. So like, I find it really fascinating when they start talking to... Just apply a bandage, bro. Stop bleeding everywhere. Oh, you stopped bleeding already. Okay, well. Like, the other thing about true crime is that I enjoy hearing the psychology behind it. I enjoy hearing the reasoning, like why they did what they did. So I really like, you know, hearing about confessions and the reasons that they give, because they're never good reasons, right? There's never a good reason to murder someone. But I also really enjoy hearing about the court cases. Like, recently, I listened to the Karla Homolka story, which Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo are like two of the most notorious serial killers in Canadian history. And I knew of them. I had known, like, because they often were talked about as being like these attractive kind of killer couple. And I think they're called Ken and Barbie killers or something like that. So like, I knew of them, but I never knew the story. Where did this shocker go? It was right here. It just meandered off after I started shooting. I bet it's trapped to the south against the building. Where are you? Oh, you got stuck in a road roller. Oh, you idiot. Alright, well, we'll start pulping and stuff. So I listened to the Karla Homolka story, which I'd never heard before. I heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it. And she is out of prison, like, after murdering several people, being an active participant in brutalizing a few people, which we're not going to talk about in detail, of course. That's not what this show is about. But horrible, horrible experience that they did horrible, horrible things. And that lady, despite being an active participant in brutal things, was released after like 10 years. And the husband got life, of course, for being a horrible monster. But yeah, it's real interesting to hear about how she perpetrated all these terrible things and then basically got off very easily without doing very much time. I mean, in the scheme of things, it's not that long of a time, really. 12 years, 10, 12 years. It's real fascinating to listen to that, because it's not really about like the murder or glorifying it or whatever. Some podcasts glorify the killers. I don't like that at all. It's more about like, how do these people function? Oh, I see. It just leaves a mild sludge trail as it rolls. That's interesting. Do you explode into like flesh raptors or anything? You do explode. I was hoping that when you exploded, you would spray this sludge trail everywhere, but you did not. So I'm not sure why they're color-coded red. They don't seem very dangerous. Maybe it was really fast. I wasn't really paying attention. I don't see why that would be a dangerous creature, really. Although I guess if you don't have a gun, it could be problematic. I'm also pretty irritated that this, wherever this came from, it only dropped 4 rounds of 357. That's a real bummer. So I really enjoy hearing about the court cases, hearing about how these deals get worked out, you know, what makes the prosecutor decide to push it or not push it, things like that. Oh, we're over time. I should end the episode. Yeah, I didn't mean to ramble, everybody. Hope you had a good episode. I will be back with more of this content in the near future, and I'll see you in the next video.